from the Crypt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Welcome to episode 79 of Dads from the Crypt, the Tales from the Crypt podcast. My name is Jason, and tonight I'm joined by Jody.
Hello.
And Mondo.
Hi.
Hi. And tonight we have two great guests for you. First, his name is Maynard. He's from the Reels of Justice podcast.
Say that 5 times fast. How's it going?
Good. And we'll get to all your background stuff in a minute. And then we also have filmmaker and podcast producer Joe Russo.
Hello.
Okay. We got a lot to get to tonight. So first, Maynard, Reels of Justice. Tell us about it.
It is the official fake movie court, right? So every week we have a guest on who faces off against one of our 4 hosts as either prosecutor or defense of a movie of their choice. So they pick a movie, they want to defend it. I know you were on, you did Bordello of Blood, you wanted to prosecute it. And then one of us takes the other side, whatever it is, we just take it. And the other 3 act as a judge and jury. And both sides will argue their case, whether the movie deserves to be considered a bad movie. Remember, that's a low bar. Mediocre movies get off. You got to prove you're a bad movie. And then we sentence the movie to sometimes to movie hell, sometimes just to various amusing punishments.
Yeah, I had a great time going there. It might be one of the most research in like free preparation, and like I pre-wrote my statements and everything. A lot of work, but I had a really, really fun time. And we had Gil Adler come on and do a little bit about his opinion. I called him as a witness.
Yes, he was called to the witness. Usually we don't have a ton of witnesses. A lot of times if I call a witness, it's me doing a funny voice. Like I've called Mario to the stand and stuff like that. But to actually have someone who worked on the film who wanted to speak out against it.
Yeah. That
was a first for us.
Right. And actually I put the video on our YouTube channel, so if anybody wants to check that out. But also I really enjoy your podcast. I love podcasts that have a gimmick more than a bunch of people sit around saying, "Oh, this is cool, that sucked." I really like a gimmick behind the podcast. And like earlier today I was listening to your Star Wars New Hope versus Empire Strikes Back episode, and you don't dodge the tough ones.
No, we like to go from, I mean, I've defended like Battlefield Earth and stuff like that. But yeah, that was an interesting and fun one. Occasionally we'll do those head-to-heads. Like if someone wants to talk about a good movie, we're like, well, we can't have you prosecute a good movie. You'll have to defend it against another good movie. So it's kind of like a boxing match, and we pick our favorite like that.
Yeah, I really want to hear you do the. You mentioned Godfather 2 versus Empire Strikes Back. That would be interesting.
Well, no, we're gonna do Godfather Part 2 versus Godfather Part 1.
No, but then you got to put the other two together. You got to do a bracket.
Maybe we might do the King of the Ring tournament final, but then we'd have to get those specific representatives back.
Yeah,
So.
And then while we're still on you, tell us about your experience with Tales from the Crypt.
I just sometimes I was lucky enough to watch it as a kid. Not all that often, but if I was able to stay up late enough and nobody stopped me, I would be able to catch some episodes. But it's something I more watched like in college and some DVD, more eventually less more illicit means sometimes. But whatever it took to be able to watch it. So it's just a fun show. In general, I like anthology horror. I'll watch like Thriller and Night Gallery and stuff like that. So I'm drawn to those kind of like shorter stories, quick one and done. So Tales from the Crypt was just like kind of a no-brainer.
And do you have any favorite episodes?
I can't remember the name of it. It's got Demi Moore, and I love Demi Moore.
Is that Dead Right?
I think so.
Right,
Yeah.
I think,
it's season 1, right?
That's season 2.
Is that? And then it's got to be very early season 2, I think.
Well, there's the one with Leah Thompson that's very similar, so people get the two mixed up.
Oh, okay, maybe that is it. But yeah, no, I like
that's a great one.
Demi Moore.
All right, and then let's move over to you, Joe. Tell us about what you do.
What I do, well, I'm a writer, director, and producer of a couple movies, including a horror anthology I produced, which seems on brand, called Nightmare Cinema.
Oh yeah.
And then I in the podcast space, I produce a podcast called Postmortem with Mick Garris, which spoilers. I think I know why you asked me to come on the podcast today.
All right. And then what's your experience with Tales from the Crypt?
My experience with Tales from the Crypt is I was very young when it was running initially. And my parents, my dad specifically, he thought HBO was too expensive. So we didn't have HBO. And I thought HBO was something that like rich people had. So
Yep.
and so I really only ever saw it when I went over friend's house at sleepovers and stuff, but I was obsessed with the Crypt Keeper. I loved the look, I loved the puns. Like it fed into kind of my gateway horror. But yeah, I mean, in college, that's probably when I saw the bulk of them. And I'm a big Christmas horror fan, so I'm going to tell you that Robert Zemeckis and Fred Decker's collaboration in the original first 3 episodes, that's probably peak for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, and then this is going to sound like the Mick Garris episode because we're just going to keep talking about him, but all for good reason. Obviously, this episode was directed by Mick Garris. We're going to talk about tonight, and actually, we have an interview I did with Mick Garris that is on the podcast feed right now. We had a great conversation. We talked about Videodrone, Critters 2, The Shining. We talked about this episode and a ton of other things. Hocus Pocus, which it's a great thing that just kind of comes up every once in a while. So go check that out too after you listen to this. But let's get into it. We're gonna talk about the episode Whirlpool, which came out. I guess this is the 3rd episode that came out on the same night, Halloween 1994. Jody, give us a plot synopsis.
All right. I don't know if this one's easy or difficult to plot synopsize. It gets to say the same thing a bunch, but also a little bit twisty here. All right, so we open on the Crypt Keeper giving interior design advice. So that's something you've got now. And then in our main story, we see a woman who is smoking in her bathroom before we hear a gruff man's voice inviting her to get in the tub with him. And I just have to point out, this man is in the tub with a full button-up shirt on, a pair of shorts, and a t-shirt. I don't know what's happening, but
how do you take baths?
Take baths and wash clothes at the same time. It's a time saver.
Saves time.
This guy is an innovator. But anyway, suddenly a man strangles the man who's sitting in the tub, and then those two argue, and the man in the tub, supposedly dead man, jumps up and strangles them both. And we find out that this is actually a scene from a Tales from the Crypt comic. We're in the bullpen. You've got the editor, you've got some writers all standing around looking at it, and everyone's confused by this comic, which I don't understand why they're confused. It seems pretty straightforward. Dead man comes back, strangles people, but they
gratuitous nudity.
Yeah,
he definitely didn't strangle him long enough to kill him. Let's be honest. Like you have to keep that chokehold on for quite a while.
I don't. Mondo is our.
Yeah, I don't want to know.
But everyone's very confused for some reason. But they all hate it. Basically, is the point here. It's written by a woman named Rolanda, and her boss Vern says it's a piece of shit. We get an appearance from A.L. Katz on screen, which is something we don't get very often. He's one of the other writers named Iggy. And Vern calls Rolanda into his office, chews her out, saying she used to be one of his best, but she's lost it now. She needs to start drinking again, he tells her. And then he tells her to clean out her desk and call security to throw her out. And they literally throw her out. Like the actress takes a good fall as they toss her out. Later, we see somebody walking through the office when there's nobody else there but Vern. And it's Rolanda. And she said, I've taken your advice. She's been at a local bar. She's drinking. She says, I've got a new story for you about a woman who loses her job and then snaps. And at that point, she pulls a gun on Vern, tells him to beg on his knees before firing several shots and killing him. She gets the elevator to leave, but when she gets to the lobby, there's like a whole police squad waiting for her, and they shoot her immediately. Just repeat it like 10 shots. It's intense for police that just happen to be there waiting.
Yeah, it's almost like modern policing. It was fine.
Sure. All right. So after being shot to death, Rolanda wakes up in bed in the morning. Over on her desk is the comic Whirlpool. And then we're back in the bullpen again. And once again, the same scene is playing out. She's telling them about the comic. Everyone hates it. She gets fired. Somewhere in the midst of all this, though, she tells Vern something strange is happening. I've had a dream like this, but he just continues on like before. Later that night, Rolanda's in her house. She's loading up her gun, but she sets it down and goes to the office without her gun. She hasn't been drinking, and she talks to Vern again, pitches the same story about a woman who loses her job and then snaps. But then suddenly Vern pulls a gun and makes her get down on her knees.
Ugh.
And he pulls the trigger. She pushes his hand away, so he misses, and there's a struggle. A shot is fired. Vern gets shot and dies. Again, she gets on the elevator and is shot by 50 to 60 policemen in the lobby. It's not that many, but it seems like.
I believe the second time she gets off on 13th floor.
Yeah, she gets off on a different floor.
They're still there.
Still shot.
They're still there on the 13th floor for some reason. Yes.
Apparently, they are waiting on every floor with an entire squadron for this woman who shot someone 30 seconds ago.
I mean, security in that building was pretty good too. They got there super quick to throw her out. So
yeah, they come throw her out. 5 seconds later, the man is there. This is a heavily armed comic book office. I don't know why.
I mean, the EC Comics spares no expense.
I guess. I don't think they had any money for pretty much their entire run.
That's where it all went. So
Yeah,
All the
Spend all the
security. Yeah,
security.
yeah. So anyway, after dying again, she wakes up in her room again, and this time she just tears up that comic and calls the office and says, "I'm not coming in today," which is a great strategy. But the doorbell rings, and Vern is there at her house looking for the story, which I'd have some problems if my boss showed up at my house telling me I've got work late. Like, we're going to have some meetings with somebody to keep that from happening.
HR is really armed.
This
Yeah.
is before HR, guys. Before HR.
But Vern shows up there. He's looking for the story. He yells at her and then fires her and pulls a gun on her. Why? I don't know. Pulls a gun on her. And then he turns it on himself and shoots himself. Again, why? I don't know. But he does it. And then the cops all run into the room. And this time they don't shoot her. They arrest her.
and then her first reaction to him shooting himself is to grab the gun out of his hands and hold it like she's a shooter.
Yeah. So little piece of dad advice. If you're ever in that situation, don't pick up the gun. There you go. That's some good advice for you. But it didn't work for her because she's lined up in front of a firing squad while her two coworkers are standing there to watch it. I guess they invited them.
Yeah.
They're saying the same lines they said earlier. And she says, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get shot and I'll wake up in my room again. And the firing squad shoots her. But then we're back in the bullpen. And it turns out that whole scene in the firing squad was a comic that they were looking at in the office. And this time, Vern is the artist and the writer. And Rolanda is the editor who is yelling at him for turning in this stupid comic about the person getting shot by the firing squad. And even the other writers are different. There's no longer A.L. Katz and some other guy. There's a woman, and I'm pretty sure that other guy's Mick Garris. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think it's Mick and his wife.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, we get Mick Garris in on camera there too. And then Rolanda tells Vern to get in his office. Vern says, oh shit, and then it spins out, and that's the end.
The Whirlpool.
All right.
Wild
Thank you,
episode.
Jody. Thank you, Jody. All right, let's go to our review. Joe, why don't you start us off? What'd you think of this episode?
Well, you put me in a very awkward spot because I have to talk about one of my producing partners episodes. No, I thought it was really fun. It's interesting. It came out what, a year after Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
So it would be really interesting, I think, to find out from Mr. Katz, how much of that was conceived before Groundhog Day, how much of this was a reaction to Groundhog Day. But I think, Mick, you could tell, was having a lot of fun in the directing. He really leaned into, I think, the almost cartoonish comic book side of Tales from the Crypt, like some of the camera moves and the push-ins, and it's all big and broad, and it lets you know that you can have fun with it, and I did. I think he I'm very curious, and I might be stepping on some toes about where we're going, but he it sounds like he came up with the idea of switching the genders of the characters in the final section, and I'm so curious, and I'll probably have to muscle him down and ask him what the original ending was. But yeah, it's fun. It's a very meta episode. And as someone who really came into horror movies during the Scream era, I can appreciate that. So yeah, I thumbs up from me.
All right, Maynard, go ahead.
Well, some of the thoughts I had on the synopsis, I interpreted some of it differently. I didn't think that the ending was the fourth stage. I thought that segments 1, 2, and 3 were all part of the story that Vern had always been turning in. So she'd never been a writer. And he wrote a story about how his editor, in reverse positions, gets stuck in this cycle of never-ending violence that she can't ever avoid. Obviously, the parallels to Groundhog Day are there if we do choose to accept that it all happens in reality within the story, and she dies and just winds up back in bed. I also could see an interpretation of it actually being dreams within dreams within dreams that become premonitions, in which case we can kind of look at it like a Final Destination idea. She sees what her death is going to be that day, but she has the opportunity to change it, only to realize that was another dream sequence, and she can go and change it again and again. But the ending's always the same, right? The whirlpool, it all ends in the drain at the end, so she's inevitably going to get killed. Probably, as we talked about, the least believable thing in the film is the police response time. The police never get there that fast. I'd want to live in that city.
Do you?
Well, I'm not a killer, Joe.
They start shooting very fast.
Yeah, they didn't even know if it was her.
Yeah. Well, what era does this take place? Because I definitely, you get that kind of 50s vibe, and I know it is.
It is meant to be in the 50s. I can confirm
that 50s bullpen feel for sure.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, firing her is probably kind of believable that security gets her out of there pretty quick. I don't know that the police would shoot a woman in the 50s at all, even if they caught her, like with a bloody knife in her hand. I don't think they would do it.
Like I said, that's kind of leans into the cartoonish nature of just the whole thing. It's all very over the top and surreal, even from the opening couple frames.
Yeah, I think when I talked to Mick, he said he definitely wanted to be funny, but not like obviously funny, more like situationally funny.
Yeah, it is funny because it's just like no matter what she tries to change, it always ends the same way. Whereas like Groundhog's Day, he has control over generally whatever he does. He just can't leave the town, but he could just stay in bed all day if he wanted to one day, and he does a few times, and nothing forces him out of bed. The only inevitable thing is that he wakes back up the same morning. And so she has really no control over her situation. So if anything, it might be a humorous play on the Groundhog Day idea. I don't see it as like a direct lift or anything. It is funny. Richard Lewis does a lot of the heavy lifting for the humor there, but who's the main star? I gotta look.
Rita Rudner.
Yes, she's very funny in her characters.
But again, they're two comedians and they're not like telling jokes. They're just really like overselling.
Yeah.
But for like a dark humor perspective.
Yes.
And I did like the meta of not only the Tales from the Crypt being the comic book, because they could have easily Greeked it up and and done stories from the grave or something, but they deliberately wanted to do Tales from the Crypt. And I also like they make a reference to another episode, right? The Secret with vampire versus werewolves. So they're kind of poking fun at themselves too, like don't do that vampire werewolf story. I hate that story. So overall, yeah, it's meta, it's fun. It's sort of a quirky take on, I think, that Groundhog Day trope or the Final Destination idea, which I think Twilight Zone did first. So yeah, I'll give it a thumbs up. It's a funny, lively little episode.
All right, Jody.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this one. It's like we've said already, very cartoony in the way that it does things. Like I really love the shot of her waking up in her bed every morning, the way it kind of like zooms out up to the ceiling. Very artistic, comic booky looking, and a lot of things work that way in this one. Like when it fades from real life into the comic book, the times that we realize that we're actually watching a comic. One thing I really like when Tales from the Crypt makes fun of themselves by making what looks like a typical Tales episode. So it's at the beginning of Demon Night, and it's here too. You've got a bathroom, you've got boobs, you've got someone coming back from the dead. And that 100% feels like they're going, this is what you expect from us, right?
Yeah.
And then they do their own thing afterwards. And I love when they do that, because it's just got that touch of meta humor there that I really enjoy. But yeah, no, definitely meta. Kind of a precursor to Happy Death Day, technically, when people keep dying and waking up the same day. So, Groundhog Day, Happy Death Day, Final Destination. I can see all of that in this. The episode leaves a lot of room for interpretation as to what actually happened in it. I think you're just supposed to enjoy the ride more than anything, because in these 20 minutes, frequently there's a lot of questions left behind. But you can be pretty forgiving when you're watching Tales from the Crypt.
All right, Mondo. Mondo, you're on mute. Where's your microphone go out?
Oh, God damn it. No.
There you go. Okay.
Jody, are you drinking a Dr. Pepper strawberries and cream?
I am.
Dude, it's so good. Like if that doesn't stay year round, I'd be very upset.
Yeah, no, it straight up tastes like topping from like a strawberry shortcake or something. Like it's intense.
Yeah,
and he's got Benny Loves You behind him too.
He does.
That's right.
I'm always very jealous of that, because I did not make the pre-order. Now you can get them for like $1,000 on eBay.
I have one of those. One of those in my living room. I'll sell it to you for $999.
That's a
deal.
deal. It's a deal.
I'm gonna pass. But let me get a couple more beers in me, and we'll talk. Because when I have enough beer in me, I'm rich. Apparently,
He's an experienced eBay seller. You can buy with confidence.
I'll need tracking. But yeah, I like this episode. It's a comic book. It feels like a comic book. It's one of the episodes that really makes you kind of step into those pages. Like everybody else said, the twist at the end, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was kind of a cool way with the gender reverse. I wish M. Night Shyamalan would watch this and see how to do a twist really well. That'd be pretty cool. I'm sorry, I just watched Knock at the Cabin, so
I loved it.
No spoilers yet.
I haven't watched
liked
it.
I really liked it, and one of my best friends wrote it. So
no spoilers.
Yeah.
I love no spoilers, but I love Dave Bautista. Oh my God, he's so good.
He's so great.
And what's funny is, I will tell you right now,
I prefer Blue Tista.
Batista was the best when he just. We're gonna talk about wrestling. Sorry, when he just leaned into that bad guy heel character of being like, yeah, it's so good. You have this guy who's 6'4" and looks like a killer, and he's all like dressed to the nines and talking about his feelings. It was amazing. But Knock at the Cabin, I will say, as reading the book, I think that's why I was disappointed in it. If I never read the book, I would not have any complaints, probably.
Sure. Without spoiling it, it has a radically different ending.
Yeah.
Book
And that's what I like, because it means that two separate stories in the same universe exist. One on film, one in book. Both are valid, absorb both, and it's like an alternate reality of the same situation. That's why I dug it. If you liked what the book did, you can read that day. If you want to do what the movie did, you can watch the movie.
Oh, yeah.
So
by no means do I tell people not to watch it, because I do think it's a really well done movie, and And again, like what I didn't like about it is if someone's never read the book, they're not going to care.
Oh yeah. No. When Steve and Mike did their first draft of it, it was more 1-to-1 to the book.
Yeah.
But I do think like the book in their original draft was much more like an indie horror movie, and I do
sure.
think Shyamalan did a good job with an ending that will work for most people. You know,
definitely.
and so I like that's kind of how I look at it, which I think is kind of similar to what you guys are saying too. But it was I really liked it. So.
Everyone's in the casting choices were fantastic, and all the characters did. God, the acting was great. I loved it.
Really good. Yeah, one of Shyamalan's best in a long time.
Yeah, as a movie, again, as someone who didn't like the ending, I would never tell him not to watch it because I still think it's very valid and still stands alone on its own. But that's me being salty. He also did The Village, and I can talk about The Village for days. But
Not guilty.
Okay, we're not
guilty in the
going
reels
down the
of justice.
Shyamalan hole.
Yeah. Hey,
Not guilty in the reels of justice.
Yeah, I would say I'll defend The Village. It's
Yeah,
better
not
than
guilty,
I'll
man.
prosecute it, but
Too late. Already not guilty.
It-
Don't do
double-
appeals.
Yeah, but
That's
they
it.
double jeopardy.
Wait, you guys
double
don't do
jeopardy.
you don't do appeals on the episode?
Nope.
I feel like, you know what, when you start running out of episodes, though, you're gonna start doing.
no, but
There's-
that'll be
there's,
double jeopardy.
There's a great podcast I listen to called The Rewatchables, and they've been doing reheats where they reheat a rewatchable because they need to talk about it again. Anyway, so
One day, maybe we'll look at appeals of justice, but not quite yet.
So Mondo, Whirlpool.
Oh yeah, let's get back to the episode. No, I was a fan of this, and it was a fun episode. Like I said, I can't really talk any more about what you guys already talked about because all of you kind of gave my thoughts on this. Where I just love when Tales from the Crypt feels like a comic book, and you do have like the comedic actors kind of just able to let loose, and I love Richard Lewis. I never really loved him growing up, but then I started watching Curb Your Enthusiasm and just kind of fell in love with him and how he's like just a grumpy man.
yeah.
In watching Curb Your Enthusiasm, I feel like that's like how he is in real life, how Larry David is in real life, and how they treat each other. So I think it's even better. Rita Rudner I thought was really great in this too, and overall just a really fun episode. The one thing I didn't catch is he keeps saying, is that when he keeps saying, "Hey, just do that one comic that you already wrote and throw it to press"? Was that based on a real comic or a real episode?
I don't remember that one where he says someone wants to be the head of the company, so they cut his head off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like a throwaway, like
Okay.
Yeah,
obvious, like Tales from the Crypt.
that seems
Fun.
too dumb even for
Should have
sure.
been an episode.
Right. You could have had, what was his name, like Carrot Top in there, or Pauly Shore or somebody. He could have jumped right over that. I do love, man. I love the wraparound in this. I love the Crypt Keeper, like in his old house. And I really just want someone to make TV shows, the Crypt Keeper going shopping now for home improvement, like at Home Depot, trying to buy paint colors and getting
Like,
upset when he can't find someone with the key.
Like this old house with the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah, where he's just buying stuff to decorate his little house in Los Angeles, and I don't want him to be buying grotesque things. I want him to pick out like a nice wallpaper and some nice paint, and like just I want him at home trying to put together a table from IKEA and just getting pissed off. But that's what I want from Al and Gil. So if they can get the rights to the Crypt Keeper, just make that happen, Jason.
Ooh, the rights to Tales from the Crypt are so messy, guys. Oh
Yeah,
my
we know.
I'm sure you do. I've looked into it a couple times over the years, and it's rough. It's really
Jason
rough.
actually interviewed some lawyers about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
we
we
dug
have
into it.
two. We call them State of the Crypt episodes. And
Oh man. So yeah. So
I know.
your listeners know it's. I'm
But-
afraid. I'm afraid it's never going to get untangled.
Well, here's my thing, and that's, I'll do this as my review. I love when they do like from the office of EC Comics, because they did another one, Corman's Calamity, which is kind of the same setup. If they were going to do some sort of reboot or something connected, this is the format I would do, or just have it all kind of start in the offices of EC Comics, and then kind of it would spin off into like whatever tale. So I mean, everyone loves the
Are you afraid of the dark kind of thing? Instead of the Midnight Society,
Submitted.
you get the bullpen.
Submitted
Yeah.
for the editor's approval.
Yeah, exactly. So like everyone loves the Crypt Keeper, but I just can't see the rights to that ever being like, well, the rights to the Crypt Keeper as shown on Tales from the Crypt, the TV show by HBO. I never
I'll
say
just say
never,
this-
but anytime soon, I don't see those rights ever being usable. But you could do from the offices of EC Comics. And that's the angle I would take.
Have you confirmed that with the lawyers?
That's, I mean, no, like what, again, back to Shyamalan, he had the rights to EC
Right.
Comics.
Yeah,
He
I
did
remember
not
that.
have the rights, again, to the Crypt Keeper likeness as shown on the show. And that's kind of what shut it down.
Yeah.
Well, I think the hard thing is anyone that's going to want to put money into that project is going to want the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah,
Right.
You can't just put some old British guy in a hood like the 1970s movie.
But as far as this, yeah, as far as
I will
episode-
say though, the scare taker is available
there you go.
and intellectually distinct.
There we go. But yeah, I mean, everything we said about this episode, the cam work is really good. It's funny. It's got those big performances that you want out of a Tales from the Crypt episode. I think Mick said that Richard Lewis is a big horror buff, so he had a really, really fun time on this. Rita Rudner, I think, probably enjoyed being like the lead in something like this.
Well, I read somewhere this was her first TV performance. Like she'd always done stand up and stuff. This is one of her first like
yeah, I could see that. Or she did a lot of writing and she wrote novels, but this might have been one of her first like in front of the camera. So
I think you're right.
She really went for this. And again, as someone who's hung out with Al Katz, on quite a few times now, it's really cool kind of going in a time machine and seeing him. And I've already heard his little segment for this. I won't spoil much, but he originally wanted to be an actor. But he ended up being a writer. So like it's kind of cool to see him flex his acting muscle in this opportunity. But you'll hear more about that. And again, I thought Mick does a great job with it, bringing out the absurdity in some of these situations. And again, I like to go over people's resume.
Also, I just to piggyback on that. Sorry, it also looks like a Mick Garris episode.
Yeah,
it does.
The lens choices feel very much in vogue with a lot of what he was doing at the time. He loves, like really, really, really wide lenses, and I think that's how he created that like crazy movement, those zoom ins and push-ins on the bed and stuff. Like, it definitely has some like Mick Garris hallmarks for sure.
Sure.
He was playing in the Crypt space, but he brought a lot of his own personality, his own cinematic personality to it.
Yeah, and the camera's kind of always moving, which I really like. A static camera I find really boring after a little bit.
Yeah.
And again, just to go over some of his resume, again, we already talked about Critters 2. He did Freddy's Nightmares, Psycho 4, Sleepwalkers, The Shining miniseries. He created and executive produced Masters of Horror. He wrote Hocus Pocus, The Fly 2, Batteries Not Included. So it's such a great resume. And, and again, anyone that's ever talked to him, seen him talk, he's just the nicest, most complimentary guy. I know we're gushing over him, but he deserves to be gushed over because we need more Micks in the world.
He's okay. I know he's probably listening to this. No, I've been very lucky. I mean, I met Mick in 2014. And we met on a general meeting where he brought up wanting to do a reboot to Masters of Horror called Nightmare Cinema. And that's how we met. And that was hard to believe that was, 9 years ago. Yeah, crazy. Actually, the day we're recording this, we started shooting Nightmare Cinema 6 years ago today.
Wow. Congratulations.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, happy shooting anniversary. And tomorrow's the 6th anniversary when we threw someone off a roof. So, that was pretty cool.
You always remember your first.
Yes, that's right. And then a bunch of police showed up and shot us.
But I mean, also just to close the loop on that a little bit, I love on the Postmortem podcast how he's interviewing classic people from the genre, but also the new people. He had that Keela Cooper interview who wrote Megan and Malignant. It was such a great interview. And then he does the AMAs where he's like kind of giving like almost his own clinic on like filmmaking and screenwriting. Those are always very entertaining.
It was cool because you see some of the filmmakers get kind of grumpy as they get older, but it seems like Mick has a lot of love for the genre and a lot of love for the new school, like you said. And it's cool. It's cool to see people that have done as much as he has that are still still find things to be excited about.
He's a fan. He's a genuine fan. He always has been. Even before he started his filmmaking, he broke in doing interviews for the Z channel and from doing behind the scenes videos on some of your favorite movies from the 80s, like Poltergeist and Gremlins and Goonies. And so he's always come at it from just a pure love of cinema. Now that's not to say he loves everything.
Who does?
He and I get in some battles over things that we like and don't like. But yeah, no, when he finds something that he really loves, he is the biggest champion of those movies and series and those creators. And that is something that I've tried to take into my own presence in the community and on social media and stuff too. You'll never see me bash something on Twitter. I'm always trying to lift people up. So I actually might be a great guest for the show where I have to tell you why a bad movie is good.
Well, it's not bad till you find it guilty. But yeah, we'll have you on. Absolutely, we'll get your info on here.
Well, I think what's interesting about the internet too is like I've talked about it before. Is like I don't care if someone doesn't like a movie, but when people start attacking like the people that made the movie. Like this person's a terrible. Like I was giving M. Night Shyamalan shit. I love Signs. I love Unbreakable. I've never seen The Sixth Sense. I love. Yeah, my mom spoiled the day the movie came out on VHS. My mom watched the movie and spoiled it for me. She's a terrible mom for a lot of reasons, but that ranks up there.
My friend spoiled it in the theater. We were watching it together, and he leaned over and went, "He's dead." Like, he guessed. He didn't know. He guessed.
I mean, look, as someone who's has a couple movies that are not beloved on his resume, look, it's never fun when people just tweet at you to tell you how much you suck. Especially when you were just the writer and you maybe had nothing to do with what they did to your movie after that point. So
you can say like, yeah, I wasn't a big fan of this movie. Not let me tag the director and everyone that worked on it so they know how much I think they suck. Like, or in people, the thing I hate is when people will bash someone else for their opinion. Like if you say you don't like a movie, like, oh, you're a fucking idiot. How you not like that movie? It's well because I watched it and just didn't like it. It's okay. Like,
I tell people. Well, the thing that is wild to me is sometimes you'll see people on social media who are like, they want to be a screenwriter or they want to be a director.
Yeah.
They're out there being like, I don't know, like a week ago, this guy was like, Babylon sucks. And I'm like, practice this phrase. It's not for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That happens to us sometimes because we'll say, I didn't like this movie, but I don't know if that makes it bad. I can see this having value for someone else, and that might be a not guilty from us. Or I voted movies that I've liked. I voted them guilty because I just this was a ton of fun. I had a blast. I'm going to watch this again, but I think it might be stupid.
One of my favorite movies is Jason 10. I love that movie.
Love Jason X.
Favorite movie.
Love Jason X.
But if you told me it's a bad movie, I'd be like, yeah, definitely.
Yes. Yes.
But it's a good bad movie. It's fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's absolutely a fun bad movie.
I have a theory that like every movie out there, it's someone's favorite movie.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
Well, I'll tell you, I experienced that as well, Jason. Like, so a couple years ago, we had Don Mancini on the podcast, and if you don't know who Don is, he was the creator of Chucky, and still runs the show even to this day. But before he did that, he did a movie called Cellar Dweller, and he is not, I think, like me, it's something he wrote and someone else made, and he's not super happy maybe with the end result. And he kind of writes it off, but he's like, but I go to conventions, and people come up to me and they're like, I really love Cellar Dweller. And I sat there and I heard that and I was like, that's interesting. And then on the second anniversary of the Bruce Willis movie that I wrote, which, did not end up the way I would have liked it to, I had people reaching out telling me how much they liked it on social media. And I was like, this is wild. I was like, I don't think this is a very good movie, but like, I'm not going to tell them that, like if they like it, if you like it, you like it, man, I
think there is someone who likes every movie out there.
Yeah.
As far as it being their favorite, who Whose favorite movie is The Scorpion King 4? Who's that?
Hey, someone, if you go to Amazon and look up the reviews, someone's gonna say best movie ever.
But
And someone's also going to say it's the worst movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I look at it like sometimes, I know for me at least, it also matters like when I saw a movie and the conditions I saw.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no,
sometimes.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
Like I don't like Pulp Fiction. And I know it's blasphemy to a lot of people, but I watched it in a time when I wasn't going through really good stuff in my life and I was in a bad mental state. And whenever I watch that movie again, that's what it reminds me of. So I don't appreciate it like I should. I'm not going to call it a bad movie. I'm going to say just I don't like it because of these reasons. And on the other hand, like The Gate is one of my favorite horror movies because I remember watching it as a little kid, being terrified of it, watching it way too young, and it just stuck with me. And I love everything about it. So I think you have that one kid that, you know, it was the right weekend, you know, hanging out with mom and dad. They rented the Scorpion King. He's 6 years old. He loves the Rock in that.
Scorpion King 4.
Is that Randy Couture? Is that Randy Couture? He loves Randy Couture.
Yeah,
And,
I can't remember which one he's in.
I do remember when Randy Couture did it, they had to CGI his cauliflower ears.
He might be in 3,
Okay.
but not.
But-
I don't think he's in 4.
But yeah, maybe that's his favorite movie because that's just what he remembers. That's like that moment was the right moment for him.
How about this way? I'm sure every movie someone's made gotten a tattoo tribute to.
No.
I want to see who's got the Scorpion King 4 tattoo.
Leah Thompson is doing the convention rounds right now, and she posted on her Instagram. Someone had a Howard the Duck tattoo.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
We did Howard the Duck, and you know I won't spoil how it went out, but it had a lot of charm despite its reputation.
Yeah.
That's another movie I watched.
Yeah.
I watched real young, and I remember
Very
I watched it again. I'm like, oh, it's a terrible movie, but man, does it make me happy.
Tim Robbins definitely has a highlight.
There was
All
a
right.
very short-lived production company with a filmmaker actor duo who were running it, and they've since parted ways and the company dissipated. But there was a screenwriter who became like so excited about them and the company and the future that it held that he tattooed the name of the company on his
Oh
arm.
no.
And now that company doesn't exist anymore.
I think it might be better though when someone gets like a band tattoo and it comes out, oh, that band's a bunch of racists. I wish I didn't get this
Oh my
Pantera
god,
tattoo.
that would be worse. That would be
We
much
gotta
worse.
change this
At
now
least-
to
and also the company had a-
Dan Terra.
Yeah. The company had a cool name too, so it could be worse. You know, it's not
Yeah.
like he got like the Weinstein company out of it. That would have been much worse.
Convention forever.
But it's a good lesson. Don't tattoo a production company name on your arm.
Well, now that they're defunct, can he start it again?
That's a really good question. I don't know.
There's something
I
for
should
the
have to
lawyers.
ask the lawyers. Yeah.
Just have him buy if you can, just have him get the LLC and he's like, oh yeah, it's my company. It's cool.
Mhm.
All right, Jody, give us the comic comparison.
All right, so this is a wild comic this time. I'll just go ahead and preface with that. It comes from Vault of Horror number 32, July 1953. Script and art by the same guy, Johnny Craig, and it's got a real distinctive art style. Like I really like the art on this one. But normally I have all this like typed out. I'm just going to describe what happens to this one because it's really hard to even explain what's going on. So we've got a woman. I don't think she ever has a name. We're kind of telling it from her perspective. And she's seeing these 3 like monster demon things. Like one has fire coming out of its head, one is a one-eyed, drippy-faced guy, and then another one has 4 eyes. And they're all asking her, "What is your name? What is your name? What is your name?
What is your quest?"
So she runs.
What's your favorite color?
So she runs and jumps through a window while being pursued by these guys, climbs up some stairs and falls through a door that leads to like a big black pit. And then she's picked up by a giant like muscle monster man who drops her into a cauldron of boiling water. And she says she feels it like searing pain engulfed her. Boiling water burned her mouth, scalded her throat every time she cried out. And she thrashed torturously trying to climb out. And then the strong man lifts her up and then puts her into something where she's covered in ice and she freezes. And so boiling water, ice. Then
Could she be a lobster?
this is just the start of this one. We're on like page 2 here. Then she is strapped to some kind of like rack with her arms tied up above her head. And this ghoulish old lady shows up with a needle and stabs her with the needle. And a man comes in and saves her. And he doesn't say anything. But then he straps her down into an electric chair and electrocutes her. And she dies again after.
So this is a
burning
very
and freezing.
loose adaptation.
Oh, yeah.
Did he at least give her a safe word first, or?
Well, just again, this is a 1953 comic for kids.
It was before safe words.
Thousands of volts slam through her body, tearing and burning, destroying flesh, bone, and tissue. Thousands of volts pulsating, coursing through every fiber of her being, making her torso surge and strain at the straps that held her. So just all this stuff's happening, just back and forth, back and forth. Then she's in a room that gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it's like squeezing her in, and she pops out of it. And then she's in kind of like a normal place. And there's these 3 doctors sitting around. They're talking to her, said, "You have been having all these delusions. You are experiencing episodes of psychosis. The strong man who picked you up, that was just one of our guys who works here. He was putting you in a hot bath and a cold bath to kind of shock you into having, therapy. The electric chair that you were in, that was actually electroshock therapy. A nurse was there to give you a shot. And so all of this is just you kind of going off in your psychosis. We're trying to help you." And as the 3 people are talking to her, one of them says, "Now, try. Tell me who you are." "Yes, who are you? What is your name?" And then they morph into these monsters from the beginning, saying, "What is your name? Who are you? What is your name? Who are you?" And then she busts through the window again, knocking this cycle back into action, back to the very first panel of this comic. And so it's this whirlpool of her own psychosis dragging her through monsters that aren't even there and situations that she's misinterpreting. Anyway, it's a wild comic. Like, it does not follow narrative structure. It just, things happen and then you get an explanation and then it just loops right back on itself. Very cool comic.
It's a very, very cool. I really like that one.
I'm just wondering why when I was a pro wrestler, why I didn't call myself Monster Muscle Man. That sounds like a great name.
There you go.
Triple M.
Yeah,
Would have gotten over.
It writes itself.
Butts and seats.
All right, let's move on to our episode ranking. A rating. We do 0 to 5, 5 being the best, 0 being the worst. You can do half points. Joe, what do you give this episode? No pressure.
I'm glad I don't have to do this.
I'm a Mick Garris shill, so 5 out of 5.
We'll fall in line. All right, Maynard.
Well, I'm not a Mick Garris show, but I'm going to kind of put this in the middle of the road. I am going to go 2.5 because while I think it is fun and lively and entertaining, I don't know that it holds up against the best of the Tales of the Crypt, but I also don't think it's among the worst. So I'm going to put it right in the middle of the road, 2.5.
All right, Jody.
I'm a little, unsure how to do this because Joe has already mentioned that Mick will probably be listening to this at some point. And, that adds an extra layer of pressure. But no, I really did enjoy this one. For me, it's 4.
And Mick's already got Maynard's name on his list, so
that's fine.
I'm with Jody. I give it a solid 4. I think it was a really fun episode. Like I said, I love when it looks like a comic book and feels like an EC comic. And I really enjoyed this.
I don't love it when we're all a hive mind, but I'll go with 4 as well. It just feels like the right space for it. It's not the best, but it's highly entertaining. They go big, and that's what I want for my Tales.
I feel
I'll go to 3. I'll go up to 3.
Hey, pressure!
You've convinced me.
I feel like since episode 1, we peer pressure Jason just giving higher reviews because Jody and I are usually like, yeah, it was fun. I loved it 5 or something high. Well, Jason be like, I don't know, 2.
That's all I can go last.
You're the experienced one.
It's paced so fast. It's like hard not to just enjoyably watch it. It was over before you even realize it began. It
sounds really dumb, but in this fast-paced world we live in with all these distractions, when I can sit through something and I didn't I ever look at my watch or look at the time, I know it was good because I know I had fun watching it. I know that at no point was I like, oh god, there's still because there have been episodes I've watched. I'm like, fuck, there's still 8 minutes left in this episode. Like, what is happening?
All right, and now we'll kick it over to our friend Al for his anecdotes. And we're back. Mondo, give us this.
Those were great.
Mondo, give us a song of the day.
We got this one far enough in advance. It would be kind of cool just to play it right now. I could just added it in, but
yeah, actually, I do already have it because we had to push.
Can we play it?
Yeah, we just listened to it, guys. Come on.
I don't have it on my computer yet. I told Jason last week I had a great song picked out and it was gonna be non-metal for once, and then I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna do a metal song again because I love metal.
Yeah.
So you'll never know what song I was going to pick.
Yeah, now I'm curious now.
You're not gonna know the band.
It was going to be
fine.
TLC's Waterfalls.
It's
but
fine.
not now.
God, TLC. The best thing about TLC is Michael Keaton and the other guys. If you guys don't know what that is, please go watch the other guys. It's so great. But it's Michael Keaton basically quoting TLC songs and claiming he's never heard the band. But it's a band called Napalm Death. Anybody familiar with Napalm Death? Oh, really? Okay. So back in they released their first record in 1987 called Scum. Very young guys writing very anti-establishment records. And they wrote a record on this album. They have a song called "Caught in a Dream," and the lyrics go: "Surrounding spectacle to occupy curiosity nullifies the need to face reality. Forms of escapism and entertainment occupy and disable thought." And they're ahead of their time, I guess. But now they're a bunch of old grumpy guys that are still super left wing and still talk shit about the establishment. So I still kind of love Napalm Death. And to put it in perspective, this whole album, it's like 30 songs and it clocks in at like 31 minutes.
Oh wow!
So it was just breakneck speed. They're kind of the innovators of grindcore. Bill Steer was from started the band Carcass, as you guys obviously know that.
Oh, yeah.
One of the founding members of Carcass. And then what's kind of cool too is the singer on this, Lee Harris, I think his name was. He ended up starting like a power metal band called Cathedral, which was a complete left turn from what this band was. But Napalm Death Scum is considered now like a classic in the genre. And when I first bought this album, I bought it. I think it was like 12 or 13. I was like, what the fuck is this? I wasted $13. I was pretty pissed off when I bought the CD because I'm like, what the fuck is this noise? And then over years, I actually really kind of fell in love with it and kind of it was one of those gateway albums for me to get into deeper and darker metal. So song of the week is "Caught in a Dream" by the band Napalm Death off their first record, Scum.
Thank you, Mondo. All right, Jody, do you have some horror news for us?
Yeah. So I've got some of the recent releases that have come out in this last week or so. We've got the unrated cut of Megan, which if you enjoyed Megan, a little more blood, a few more F-bombs. But yeah, no, I like both versions. It's barely any difference, but
almost indecipherable.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do want to. I've been looking.
Blood.
I'm looking for an excuse to watch Megan again since I saw it in the theater. So
I mean, it's fun.
It's a good excuse. I did it.
Yeah.
I did it on Friday night with my wife, and she enjoyed the hell out of it too. My parents liked Megan.
really,
They watched it
awesome.
over the weekend, and they text me, and they enjoyed it quite a bit. So yeah, big Megan fans in the Russo household.
A couple more that have come out. We've mentioned Knock at the Cabin already, has come out on VOD just kind of out of nowhere. So I wasn't expecting to see it so quick, but it's already out on VOD.
It was fast.
Cocaine Bear just arrived in theaters.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm so
excited for
excited.
that one.
Absolutely.
Super fun. It's super fun. I mean, go in with reasonable expectations,
yeah.
but it's and the scene where the bear catches up with the ambulance, chef's kiss.
I looked at the trailer. I'm like, this is like Jason X with a bear.
does it shove someone's face in in hydro whatever?
No spoilers. No spoilers.
In the trailer, when the bear is having a narrative with himself, I'm like, I cannot wait to see this movie.
Also on Netflix, We Have a Ghost has released. That's the one we've mentioned before with David Harbour, kind of a modern Beetlejuice type thing.
Yep.
Looks like good fun. More horror news, though. In the wake of Cocaine Bear, the Asylum has just released a poster for Attack of the Meth Gator.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which is, I believe that's Florida state animal.
I'm sure it is the meth gator. Yeah,
that's the national food of Florida State and the national animal. So
right. But yeah, the Asylum known for all of their schlocky movies. But I mean, you got to be entertained by Attack of the Meth Gator.
If there's not some like methed up drug addict like that has a standoff with the gator and has a one-on-one fight with him, I'm gonna be so disappointed.
Somebody on bath salts versus a gator on meth. You know, that's
in an old drained pool. Like I have this vision.
That'll be the sequel. It'll be like bath salts barracuda versus meth gator. Patent pending.
All right, a couple more things. The 1999 horror movie The Haunting is getting a 4K Ultra HD upgrade from Scream Factory.
Nice.
So if you would like to see those effects,
I have a very funny story about that movie. So I had that surgery that Stone Cold Steve Austin and Edge and they all got on their neck. I got it on my neck too.
Congrats.
I'm in a fun club. But when I was waiting for the surgery and the couple weeks waiting for the surgery, anytime I couldn't lay down, and anytime my neck went to one side or another, I would jolt awake from pain. So I basically had to try to sleep sitting up, right? So the only two movies that seemed to be on HBO at that time, because this is before streaming, really, was Die Hard with a Vengeance and The Haunting.
Wow.
And so I drift off to sleep watching Die Hard to wake up to the fucking Haunting. It was literally a nightmare. I can never watch that movie again.
But now you can see it in 4K. And you can see
Right.
Catherine Zeta-Jones in all her glory.
Like, I love Catherine Zeta-Jones. It's an amazing cast, but God, if
Liam
you had to
Neeson.
watch that bits and pieces of that movie all throughout the night for basically 2 weeks straight, you will literally, it's hell. It's literal hell.
And compared to the 50s movie and to the book, it's just it's a pale comparison.
That got compared a lot to House on Haunted Hill because both those remakes came around the same time, but House on Haunted Hill was just far superior.
I always get
different.
And it had Chris Kattan.
Yes.
Well,
And
also
Famke Janssen.
House on Haunted Hill was produced by Gil Adler.
That's right. I was about to say, I always get The Haunting mixed up with all of the Dark Castle pictures that came out about that same time. But Gil Adler.
No, it was DreamWorks. It was DreamWorks, which is why DreamWorks is also the studio on Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Hill House.
Okay.
All the same source material, which DreamWorks controls. Anyway.
Good book too.
All right, a couple other quick things. We have got a new horror movie being developed by the director of Deadpool 3 about lawn gnomes. So that's something to look forward to.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm into this new era of we're back to having fun with horror again, and that's how we get movies like Megan and Malignant. And give me a lawn gnomes horror movie. Yes, do it.
R.L. Stein made it work in Goosebumps.
That's right.
Revenge of the Gnomes.
Will work again.
We also have Blumhouse has announced they have a new subsidiary, Blumhouse Games, to produce original horror video games. So I'm all for more horror of any kind. And if Blumhouse is involved with video games, I can't see that not at least leading to a handful of fun games that I'll enjoy. So
We could have the Wanaverse Mario Kart game with
sick.
Gabriel and Megan and that the guy that looks like Darth Maul throwing
From
drill
Insidious.
shells at each other.
Oh, the guy from Creep.
You've got the Dead Silence car where
What was it? Peach Fuzz?
Just give us some Mortal Kombat with all those characters.
Oh my god, yes.
I was seeing Smash Brothers with horror.
There is an independent game someone made years ago with all the horror characters in it and the fighting game. And I can't remember what it's called. And it wasn't amazing, but God, it was such a cool little independent labor of love that someone wrote.
Yeah.
Well, Voorhees was he in Mortal Kombat 11?
Yeah.
Voorhees was, Freddy was
11.
The negative on Freddy was they used the new version of Freddy from the newest the Dunes remake. So he doesn't have the Robert Englund's not voicing him. So it's but it's still cool to play as Freddy. Jason Leatherface is in Mortal Kombat, Predator, RoboCop, Rambo.
I don't think I have all these characters. I think I need to go update my Mortal Kombat 11
So you got to
game.
buy all the DLC.
Yeah,
They're all in different
DLC.
versions.
Buy. Oh,
No,
fine.
they were all in different versions though. I think Freddy was in like the Mortal Kombat 9 or
I
something.
hate when they
Yeah.
do that. I hate
Yeah.
when they do that. It was like, I don't have an Xbox. I don't, but I want to play as Spawn.
Yeah.
Hate that.
And one last bit of news while we're talking about Leatherface is by the time this comes out, our good friends over the How Not to Make a Movie podcast will have released their tribute to Toby Hooper. Where
nice.
they got Kim Heinkel and a couple other people that worked with Toby to kind of talk about working with him. And then, as we know, Al and Gil also worked with Toby for Tales and some other stuff. They were just good friends of his. So they talk about their relationship with him. And then me and Mondo went on to just give a little bit of the fan take on Toby and his filmography. So
Another
go
guy
check
worked
that
with
out.
Another guy worked with Robert Englund too in
Yes.
Eaten Alive.
Yeah, I watched Eaten Alive for the first time to prepare, and woof, that's a movie.
That's a fun one. I only watched that a few weeks ago too, because we did the new Texas Chainsaw. So
Cool.
Nice.
I was watching that one.
I like that one. I'm in the minority, but I liked it.
Was the new Texas Chainsaw guilty or not guilty?
It was found guilty, and it was that's
agree.
hard for me to say, but here's my problem with it. Okay, so it's playing with the idea of Leatherface being like sympathetic, right? Because he's the victim of gentrification. But the kids coming in are all like
Also unlikable.
they're all like poor and like like if rich land developers came in to steal Leatherface's house and he spent an hour and a half chopping them up, we'd all be like, cool. It would be the menu with Leatherface, but instead it's like a bunch of like people of color and trans like teenagers coming in, and it's like, Leatherface, they need a place to go too. Like don't be like this, Leatherface. And also, how old was he? Like he had to be 80 or 86. He's not running anymore. Like even Michael Myers, like wasn't running. This dude was sprinting with the chainsaw.
It'd be great if he have his walker with his tennis balls, like just going really fast.
Yeah,
with little chainsaws in the end.
Little tiny chainsaws.
There's 4 sequences in the movie though that I think are genuinely pretty good. The cornfield scene.
Yeah, I like the cornfield bit.
Yep.
That was great. When he first like is punching through the bedroom, that was pretty good. Obviously the bus.
Yes,
the bus.
And then the ending was great. You know,
I actually compared to pretty much
when he gets
most
the
of the
head, when he gets
sequels.
the head at the end, like
The
last film.
self-driving car.
Loved that where he got the head at the end, but there's several times where it was just like, drive away now. You don't even know this woman. And also I hate that they bring her back and she doesn't actually get like a Laurie Strode-esque redemption.
Yeah.
She comes back to be victimized.
I know.
So,
Yeah, if they would have cut out that character, I think it would actually been really, really good.
I say keep her, but
Movie.
let her come back and actually kill Leatherface. He's 86.
It was too Halloween 2018.
It is, and
I would have preferred her not been in it too. I think, but you hit the nail on the head. It tries to do 2 different types of politics in one movie, and it just doesn't mix well. You know,
didn't
slasher movies are very much about, right, like the conservative evil force coming after the liberal partying teens, right?
Yeah.
And they tried to do the conservative evil force versus like also obnoxious liberal teens. Like it was a very strange mesh of politics.
Yeah.
And it didn't come out in the wash, I think, the way any of us would have hoped it would have.
Now I just picture what they could have done with like a bunch of like old executives sitting around a table talking about how they're going to cover it, and Leatherface just kicks the door open and starts massacring them.
Yeah,
so good.
That'd be sick. I would like that. As far as horror news, did you guys already cover Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey?
We've talked about that.
We talked about that ad nauseum.
All right. I only got to go see that last weekend, so it is still new to me.
I don't think anyone's seen it here yet, right?
I've seen it.
You've seen it, but
it's without. I won't give a ton of spoilers. It is not trying to be funny. It's not a comedy, so it is incredibly straightforward slasher. that wants you, if you're gonna take any humor from it, to eventually at the end going, this is Winnie the Pooh doing this. Like, so it just so besides that, it's incredibly bleak and gruesome, gory horror that just kind of hopes that it's like unorthodox choice of antagonist is gonna bring the charm. So
I'm
none of that turns me off.
I give it a thumb up because it is still violent. The little animated bit that gives in the beginning that gives the history and origin of the 100 Acre Wood is pretty cool.
I'm in.
I still recommend the mean one because it is just it's actually really funny. But still doing the slasher thing and kind of going over the top, but it still manages to come out.
Have they released? It depends when it's going to. Have they released it for mass consumption yet?
Yeah.
Like I can buy it on VOD. I haven't found it anywhere. I haven't found it anywhere.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think it's only been released in like those early release.
I think it had a little theater run, and no one's distributed it yet.
Well, I saw the festival, so I guess.
But I will watch it when it's out. Yeah.
Me too.
I highly recommend that.
And I love David Howard Thornton, so I think I think he looks great in that.
All right, let's round out with our dad advice. Joe and Maynard, I don't know if you guys are fathers, but if you have any mentor advice.
I'm an unkie.
Okay, give us some unkie advice. Give us some Funko advice.
Well, I'm a dedicated unkie. Advice. Let the kids watch scarier movies when they're young. So my best friend, he's a dad, and he's got 2 kids. One's 9. He's got a 9-year-old girl, 6-year-old boy, and I live with him, so that's why I'm unkie. So I spend a lot of time with the kids. And the little boy, he can't stand horror movies, but we let the 9-year-old stay up and we watched The Ring recently. And it was probably the scariest thing she'd seen yet. But like, I would show her tons of Are You Afraid of the Dark, and she'd just go, "That's not scary. That's not scary." We watched Lights Out, and she got through that just fine too. And so I'm like, it's time for The Ring. Let's do The Ring. So we watched that, and she liked it. She did have to hide during a couple of things, but overall she got through it. And I would say her threshold of horror movie has raised. It will now be harder to scare her, and she'll get into even deeper and darker stuff pretty soon. I'm pushing for The Descent next.
Wow.
That's a hard one.
Wow.
It's not my kid. I don't have to take it there.
You know what though? I think The Descent might hit harder when you get older because you get that feeling of claustrophobia and you learn the real monsters are the humans. I think as a kid, like I would kind of dig that as a creature feature.
Yeah. I think the only worry would be like the gore, but like that's probably not that big. I think we haven't done The Sixth Sense either, and I think that's one of the last like PG 13 ones.
13,
Yeah, The Ring ruined horror movies for my wife. Like scared her off horror pretty much like forever. I have to basically screen horror movies and decide if she'll watch them or not before she'll look at them.
That's fair.
I will fully admit the scaredest I've ever been in the movie theater was watching The Ring. And this was like opening weekends, packed theater. It scared the shit out of me. I don't think I've ever seen the whole movie since.
It's a really well-made movie. Granted, it's got the cheat sheet of Ringu to follow, but like
if you've never seen anything like that before, you don't know what's coming, what you're in for. It really is.
Well, even with Ringu, I love Ringu, but I think sometimes when you have to read all the subtitles, it kind of takes you out of some stuff in the film a little bit because your brain's constantly trying to process the words that are going through, whereas The Ring didn't have that hurdle. I think Ringu's probably a little bit better, but The Ring is fantastic.
Yeah, so I give some dad advice now. Well, so I am also not a father, and I am also an uncle to several of my friends' kids. But I was actually, can I turn this around and maybe ask you guys for some advice?
Yes.
Okay, so he's got a 2-year-old, and she went to daycare, school, whatever you would call it, right? Apparently she beat up a bunch of kids today.
Hold on, a bunch of kids? Like
I literally got a text while we were talking, and he said Emma beat up all the kids in class today and made them cry. So, what do you do in that situation?
Was this like a Royal Rumble situation?
No, I think it was like
She
that.
threw them all over the top rope.
Yeah, I think it was the parody of the slap, right? Where like she slaps one person, the next person walks in, slap, slap, slap. All the cops walk in, slap. The teacher walks in, slap.
Is it because he's watching wrestling and she's picking it up? Like, what's going on here?
Like, did you hit
She does a
RKO? We got no
DDT, then
details.
yes. Yeah.
Help me, dads.
Dude, so my daughter's 20, so if she like beat up everyone she works with, I would like fucking take her out for dinner.
I would need the context of what the kids were doing if they were.
Yeah,
trying to
that's
lay hands
really-
on, lay hands
Who
on
started
her
this?
first. Right?
How'd we get here?
I wish I had that information. I saw it and it felt appropriate to get your opinions.
Like, I just want to give her an entrance theme and a title belt.
my unky advice is to get her into martial arts because one, it'll make her better at hitting, which she enjoys.
Oh yeah,
but it will teach her control and know that she doesn't always have to hit to solve her problems.
That's
My kids are all in martial arts, so yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
I'm
in martial arts. It told me not to hit people too, so I'm pretty happy.
I think that's really great advice, guys. I will pass that along. Because all so far I've said was I'm a proud Uncle Joe. So
yeah, I mean, it really depends. Was she what was the true? Well, I mean, okay, just to take it to a bit of a serious point. It depends on like what was the trigger. Was she being provoked, or were these kids? Was she defending herself? There's a lot to the story, or maybe she was, being malicious. So there's, a lot of sides of these things.
I need to know the follow up on this. So, like, I've never wanted more of a follow up in my life to any story than this story.
Once I get some more information, I'll pass the martial arts thing along, and we'll see what else I get. So
I just imagine a little girl leaving carnage in her wake.
Yeah. I mean, Emma beat up all the kids in class.
How many kids are in her class?
I wish I could tell you, man. I wish I could tell you.
The thing is, if there's that many of them, why didn't they just attack at the same time? This is the Jackie Chan noodle time problem all over again. It's like ninjas, kick them all at once.
She's Rhea Ripley going from number 1 to 30 in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah,
they're all saying maybe they're all members of the Foot Clan.
Yeah,
she's just defending the city. Like, we don't know.
Yeah, were they all putties? She punched them in the Z.
Right.
I think martial arts is great though, because like realistically, man, like it kills your ego real fast. Like when you go in there and realize, oh wait, these people are better than me and can beat the crap out of me if they wanted to.
She's two. Can you put someone that young?
No, probably three. Probably three.
Yeah, three.
I'm sure there's some like intro or something. But also, whenever you go to a martial arts class, you're usually the worst one there the first day. So yeah, it kind of teaches you that there's always someone tougher than you.
Yeah,
my kids do martial arts and actually teach classes in their dojo. And the youngest ones they have is 3, and my daughter actually teaches 3-year-olds. So
there we go.
Yeah, there's good openings there.
I've watched several YouTube videos of little girls who do martial arts and they bow to each other and almost fall over. It's adorable.
It's very funny, very very cute.
Funny.
But if they're 2, what's the class?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it goes down to 2-year-olds, and
she's gonna be a black belt by the time she's 5.
But I mean, preschool's like 5. So like, I don't know what her class is, or if it's a daycare or what.
It's not about a daycare.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode. Robert, Maynard, and Joe, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you?
Maynard?
You can follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram at Reels of Justice. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/Reels of Justice. We also have a group called the Film Jurors, where people are invited to come in and kind of weigh in on their verdicts of films. So that's a good place to find us. And then you could just find our podcasts basically everywhere there is podcasts. Just search for Reels of Justice. And you'll find us. So we've got a good back catalog. We're in our 3rd season now, coming up to our 4th, probably midway of the year. And technically no signs of stopping unless they start only making really great movies. I hope not.
Yeah, that'll never happen.
Not with Meth Gator on the way.
All right, Joe.
You can find me pretty regularly on the Postmortem with Mick Garris podcast. I'm the host of the AMA, the Ask Mick Anything episodes. So you can find me there. I also have another podcast that I'm on called Hollywood Hangover, where we talk about recent movies and how they are potentially going to shape the business side of the industry. So you can check me out there. And you can find me on Twitter at Joe Russo Tweets and on Instagram at Joe Russo Gram.
Thank
And
you.
if you haven't seen Nightmare Cinema, I think Nightmare Cinema is a fun little anthology.
I didn't realize
fan.
until you went on. You said Nightmare Theater. I went, that's so familiar. And I have seen Nightmare Cinema.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I loved the first segment with the slasher sci-fi.
It's so great.
I was waiting until we had finished up to ask Mondo if you'd seen it, because there's the third segment. There's a priest and a bunch of little zombie girls, and the priest is killing the zombie girls with a sword. And I think from what I've seen online, like that's a lot of people's least favorite, but man, that was my favorite. Like it felt like demons or something like that.
Honestly, that's the beauty of the anthology.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone can have their own favorite, and that's totally okay.
Man, I love that.
I will never tell you publicly which is my favorite because I don't pick between my children. So
there you go.
but they're all enjoyable though. That's
absolutely.
And that's what a lot of anthologies miss on. They're like, well, we have this one good segment, we'll just make an anthology, but the other four suck. No, like that does not work. In Nightmare Cinema, they're all enjoyable. But yeah, I'm a fan of the priest one too.
Thanks, guys. That means a lot.
And a mild other shameless plug, I forgot. I do have a YouTube project that I work on with my friend. It's called Trailer Trashed. And we watch trailers and we get trashed. And we kind of respond to the trailers like in real time, but kind of like Mystery Science Theater. So we kind of talk over them, but it's not a gimmick. We are really very, very inebriated when we do it. So I don't talk about it a lot, but it is called Trailer Trash. You can find it on YouTube. And we've done a lot of the newer movies we talked about, like like Winnie the Pooh, Blood and the Honey, and a lot of most major trailers we've been doing for the past year or so.
I'm going to check that out because that sounds like my favorite thing ever.
Yeah,
they're really
awesome
fun if
title.
you're drunk too. They're really fun. And what I like is we do them kind of in pods, right? So within an hour we'll record maybe 7 or 8 of them.
Nice.
And while we're having like three or 4 beers plus, but then as we watch the videos, if you kind of watch them in order, you can see us just degenerate like worse and worse. We did a Valentine's Day one recently, and I gave my friend a big Valentine's Day heart full of nips, and we proceeded to just drink all 14 nips in that heart over like the course of the next 10 minutes. And by the end, we finished all the videos, but then we went to do one of his Mario Kart videos. He has one called Blue Shelled where we just stream Mario Kart, and the footage was unusable because we were
amazing.
Screaming and out of control.
Yeah, every time I try to do a podcast under any influence, I just can't.
But this actually sounds like how I get by the end of most of our podcasts. We don't have guests. By the end, I'm drunk and trying to get Jason to tell me his fetishes. Like,
one more plug while we're at it. Our good friend Alyssa Gray has a new podcast diving into the history of werewolf cinema, and it's called The Silver Scream. So go check that out. The first episode's out now. Second one might even be out by the time you hear this.
it's good. You guys should check it out.
Yeah,
really good.
Werewolf cinema, spooky, scary.
All right. Well, next week we will be reviewing the episode.
No one knows Werewolf Bar Mitzvah. Okay. Men becoming wolves, wolves becoming men. Come on.
Okay, next week we'll be reviewing Operation Friendship. We appreciate everyone for listening. We really appreciate it if you'll give us a rating and review on iTunes, a rating on Spotify. Check out our Patreon for bonus content, and also check out our YouTube for videos of these podcasts. And with that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Goodbye.
Count it.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.